Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning on the webinar, or afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining from. Fantastic to have you with us. We're just going to give people a few more minutes to join, and then we're going to start the webinar very soon. So just give us another couple of minutes, and then we'll kick off. All right, well, welcome again to everybody. Fantastic to have you with us on today's webinar. This is part 4 in the series, Mastering Hardware Asset Management with Microsoft Service Manager and Cyrozen. So if you haven't seen parts 1 to 3, then still fantastic to have you with us. But I really do recommend you check those out. I'll get all the information about how you can see the previous webinars at the end of the session. As always, today's webinar is being recorded so that we can send out a link to the recording to you all at the end for you to review and share. So that'll be available after the webinar has finished shortly afterwards. Okay, I've got a lot of stuff to show you guys today, which I'm really excited about. So we're going to crack on promptly. As always, if you have any questions as I'm going, please do put them in the question box. I will try and keep half an eye on that, but I've got a lot of things going on, so apologies if I miss it straight away, but I will make sure I check that regularly and take any questions. If questions are not particularly relevant to the topic, then I do want to obviously address those, but I may leave those to the end. So any questions, please feel free to put them in. I may take them as they come, or I may push them to the end, but we'll make sure that all the questions get answered before we finish today. So let's crack on. So welcome to part 4, as I said, titled Notifications, Automation and Vacations. So we've been doing a lot around how we can improve our hardware asset management processes. And we've got 2 more things to show you today, notifications and automation. And the theory is here, if we get all that right, we can take ourselves a well-earned vacation. And after leading this 4-part series, I certainly feel like I need one myself. Let's just jump through. I've got a couple of slides here just to set the scene. You all know Cyrozen well, I think. I recognize a lot of the names on the webinar today. So a real quick introduction to who we are. Customers across 65 countries around the globe. And myself, I'm part of the consulting team responsible for some of, not quite all of them, but some of the 52,000 consulting hours that we've delivered to our customers. And these are the 4 areas which Cyrozen cover. Service management, asset management, where we're going to focus today. Advanced remote support tools. If that's something you're interested in, then we've got a lot of information around that if you're interested. And obviously where I sit, which is the enterprise consulting services. So some of the stuff we're going to do today is more technical, is requires a bit more configuration and understanding. So if there's anything you're interested in, what we talk about today, but you've not got those skills yourself, then obviously that's where those consulting services come in, and we can help you out with that as well. If you want information on any of these things, then please do reach out. You can email team@cyrozen.com and we'll get you the right information you need. So here's where we've been in our webinar series. The first one was introduction, all around what is asset management, the various features and classes and setups in the product. That was with my colleague Mike. I think that was back in July. Then session 2 was establishing asset management processes. We went through how to do that. We're going to have a quick recap of that in a moment. That was in August with myself. Session 3 was last month. We looked at identifying and overcoming roadblocks, where the process isn't working, what we can do to address that. There are some simple steps that everyone can do, all the way through to some more complex steps that you may need some assistance with, but there's a whole heap of stuff you can do there to try and reduce those issues and ensure your data remains accurate and useful and valuable to you. And then last step today, as I said, notifications, automation, and vacations, which will complete our series. Oh, 2 slides there. So this we looked at all the way back in August. We're talking about the core hardware asset lifecycle, how this is a place to start, these key stages of a hardware asset's life. And every time it changes from one to the other, and it's not just a linear thing, it can loop back round. It can go back from deployed back to in stock. We discussed all this. For each one of these changes, you need to discuss your process and plan that out. And we drew this diagram to help us kind of think about all those changes of states that can happen as it goes through its life. And for each one of these arrows, we need that process in place. And as we talked about, you probably have that process in terms of, on paper, what you actually do. But you need that process in terms of how your asset management system is going to work as well. What fields need setting, what needs setting up. We were focusing for the previous 2 sessions on that deployed, going from stock to deployed, that kind of state change. And we did a couple of examples around that. We looked at what actually should happen in our data when it changes to deployed. Obviously the status changes. Then we said that a location, a custodian, and a signed date should all be set as well. This is all the examples from the last 2 sessions. I'm going really quickly because I've got lots to show you today. And then we talked about how we can remediate if those things are not being followed, if those fields are not being set, what we can do. We first of all said, well, the first thing to do is more training communication. It's actually, the easiest way to go. Making sure that people actually understand the process and making sure that we've actually told them what they should be doing and they understand that. Then we looked at some kind of customization examples to help us with these processes. We did some form modifying. We did some navigation changes to help make things simpler and easier to use. And then the final thing we did at the end of the last session was we created a custom task to deploy a hardware asset. Got a screenshot here what we made, where for that particular task we're then asking for the information required. It's forcing that to be filled in, and therefore it's enforcing the process where we're saying a custodian and location has to be set, and making sure that is getting done every single time. Okay, I know I've rushed it up real quick. If you want to review that, as I said, that was all on the last two sessions, and all those are available. The recordings are all available. So I will be giving all that information to you right at the end. So if you didn't quite follow all that, then don't worry. But let's crack on with today's new content. So in addition to those steps we did last time, today I've got a couple more ways to show you to address these challenges of things not being done properly, or process not being followed, of people not informing each other, of communication issues, of uniformity across the data, all those kind of issues we're trying to address. A couple more ways to show you. The first one is notification, and then the second one is some automation. which is a lovely little buzzword that we love to talk about, but can be quite hard to kind of start off with. So we're going to actually slightly change things up and talk about a different, slightly different scenario. It's just the next one along in the chain. We were talking about going from, from stock to deployed for the last couple of sessions. Then we're going to take it the next step down the life cycle and talk about retirement, when equipment needs to be retired. So today's scenario, the stockroom is piling up with retired equipment that needs to be disposed. Your IT staff are being very efficient at collecting equipment from users who don't need it anymore, that's no longer fit for purpose, people who are leaving, whatever it might be, and they're putting it into the correct space in the stockroom. You've got a bin allocated for retired equipment. But as far as they're concerned, they're doing what they need to do. That's taken care of. But as the asset manager, you want to know that's happening, because at the moment it's piling up and no one's actually then doing anything else with it afterwards. So as the asset manager, I want to know when equipment's been retired so that I can coordinate the pickup with the electronic waste vendor. So I can arrange for it to be collected, in accordance with my secure IT disposal processes. So for that, we're going to use some notifications. So let's jump straight into the demo for this. Get that renewed whilst I jump into the Service Manager console where we can configure our notification area. So for those who've worked with work item notifications, we can do very similar things with regards to asset management as well. So I'm going to jump in. First of all, I'm going to create a template. So that's actually the kind of structure of the actual email I want to send out in my particular scenario. So let's go ahead and create one of those. Call it Sandpit's the name of my organization, so we always prefix so we know it's a custom item as opposed to some of the built-in stuff. And this is hardware asset retire. Definitely spelled that wrong. There we go. Okay, so hardware asset retirement. The class I'm going against is a hardware asset. It's important to pick the right thing here, and I'll show you why in just a second, but remember that I did select that. And hopefully you've already got a management pack set up for email templates. If you don't, then you're going to want to create one. You could break it down with different types of email templates, hardware asset, software asset, and then the work item class even as well, incident service request, or you could put them all in one. I think either way is probably acceptable, but certainly you don't want to put in things that aren't email templates in there. So something separate management pack wise for email templates. I've already got one set up in my environment here. Okay, now on the next page, I've got my template design here, and I can go and fill in. I can just free type some text here that I want to bring in. So hardware asset has been retired. And then I can start to fill in information of the particular asset that's triggered this workflow. And by clicking this insert button, I get all the properties and relationships of the hardware asset. That's why it's important I pick that correct class on the previous screen. So I get the right thing here, and I can now pick any properties from a hardware asset to drop into my email. So find asset name. There it is. It doesn't display itself very elegantly, but that's basically saying that's going to get replaced between the dollars there. It's going to get replaced by the asset name of the asset that's triggered this email. Okay, so I can go on and fill that out. I'm going to use one I've had a little bit earlier. We see here we've got the option to send as HTML, so we can make our emails come through and look a little bit exciting and pretty. So I'm going to check that, take that out. I will fill the subject of my email because that's got to be just text. So I can do hardware asset, drop in the name. Carol, my sentence has been retired. Into my body, I'm going to paste my pre-made HTML template. Let's show you what that is. So here it is. This is something I just put together. Hopefully, again, you've already got template designs for your emails made up, or you can put some together in your own corporate style and colors. Here's mine. So this is the template put together. And at the moment, I've just left these placeholders in place, and I'm going to be replacing those with the actual variables like we just did a moment ago by dropping them in place of those. So when it comes through, it'll tell me the name, the model, and the serial number of the asset that's been retired. And it's even given me a link to click through to go and find it on the Cyrazon portal. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. Here is the code, the HTML for that. So I can go and take all of this and copy it straight in. Okay, there we are. Now I'm going to show you a little trick which saves you a little bit of wiggling around. I'm not actually going to edit this yet. If we scroll through, we can find hopefully somewhere my placeholders. There they are. So quite hard to work with. I'm going to show you a little trick to make that a little bit better. As you can see, I cannot make this window any bigger. Unfortunately, Microsoft haven't given me that option. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click Next and create that. Let that complete itself. Now I'm going to reopen it up. And now I can make it full screen. So not quite sure why it's like that, but it's a little handy trick. When you're working with HTML particularly, you want to get a bit more screen size so you can actually see what you're working with and make sure you're editing the right area and not losing any of your kind of crucial formatting and styling. So now I can really easily see my HTML and make sense of it, and I can now replace these very easily. So take out var name, and then in this place I'm going to drop in asset name, take out var model, and drop in the model, and take out serial, and drop in, I can filter up here, serial number. Okay, and the last thing to do, here's the link, the clickable link to go through and find my asset, and you can see it's just a link to my portal address, /asset management /hardware asset /edit, and then I need the ID of the hardware asset there, not the name, but the ID itself. And it is not the hardware asset ID, we want the actual object ID, which I don't seem to have. Not sure what I've done wrong there. So let's just skip over that to keep things going. I've really got to stick to time today. If you've been on the last two sessions, you know I always overrun because I like to talk a lot. So that's not going to work for us today, but hopefully you see the idea there that's possible to do to make that link to click through. Okay, so let's okay that. And that's our template done. Next thing is we can now do our subscription. So our template just defines what the email looks like, dropping in our properties from our hardware asset. Our subscription then is like our trigger. So it's what event needs to happen in order to send that template. So I haven't got any at the moment. I'm going to go and create one. And give us a name. Sample. There we go. I can give it the same name. It will tie up nicely and match. We can now define 3 different scenarios. So we want to do it when an object of the selected class is updated. We want to do it when it changes to being retired. Pick my target class. Again, that's hardware asset. That has to match up. And a measure back. And I've got a separate management pack for the subscriptions, which I recommend as well. Again, you could break that up into individual subscriptions or individual types of subscriptions, or one big one for subscriptions, but I recommend having a separate management pack that just contains subscriptions. All right, let's go through. I can filter by a CI group, but I'm going to skip over that. And I get to the additional criteria section. And because we selected the option when an object is updated, we get this change from and change to scenario where we can say, we'll be really specific about when we want this to trigger. So we want it to change when the hardware asset is changed from status does not equal retired. Get the same issue with not being able to make the box any bigger here, the window. So when it's changed from not equaling retired, change to status equals retired. So when it gets set to retired from anything else, if it changes, the hardware asset status changes to retired from anything else, this will trigger. Just I want to draw your attention to the fact that I've used HW asset status as opposed to object status or even asset status. These are the incorrect fields to use. These are the ones that are built in to the class from Service Manager and are not what we talk about when we talk about asset status on the form. When you see hardware asset status, the whole kind of life cycle thing we've been talking about this whole series, that's HW asset status, not asset status. But appreciate that. A little bit confusing. Okay, let's whiz through the next to this. So next on, it's going to ask me which template I want to send. And I'll select the one I just created a moment ago. And then who wants to receive the notification. Now you can send it to fixed recipients or related recipients. So you could send it in theory to a user related to the hardware asset. For this scenario, that's not what I want. I want to send it to the asset manager each time when something gets retired. So let's go in and I'll add myself. Okay, so I'm going to miss over related recipients and create that. Okay, so there's my subscription. It, by default, is enabled. There's the option to turn it off if you ever need to. Let's give it a test. So let's dive back in here and pick a hardware asset. And it is, as you can see, in the hardware status is currently deployed. And I'm going to flip that to retired and apply. And we should get an email coming through to notify us of that. Okay, that will take a few moments. So whilst that's going, I have seen there's a question here from Asa. I think I've already answered that as I carried on talking, but please confirm that you understood that. So just asking the difference between hardware asset status and asset status, that point I was just making. But yeah, let me know if you need me to say anything more on that. But I think I've covered that. Here we are. Here's our email come through. Let's have a look in our mail client here. And there's our email come through. So pulled in our properties, the name, the model, and the serial number, and it's informing us that the hardware asset has been retired. So as an asset manager, then I only get a nice email every time an asset is set to retired. So I can now arrange for the next step of the process to happen I'm not just blissfully unaware that the stockroom is filling up of retired equipment that needs to be sorted. Okay, another question here. Hey Jeff, how would you enable it to notify a group of asset managers rather than list them individually? Can you use an AD group? Yes, you can, as long as it's mail enabled. So in the subscription, bring that open again under the spin. You can add, so here the class selecting the domain user or group. So you can select a group, no problem, but it's got to be, it has to have an email address. And if you pick one, I think I've got some of my random groups in here. If I say I pick, just to show you what happens if I do pick one that doesn't, it says no email address. And therefore it's not gonna, I'm gonna be able to save that, but it's not gonna actually process that through. It's still gonna send to me. But as long as you've got a mail enabled address, then that will work fine. Or you can obviously list them individually as well. You can add, as you can see, add more than one person here. So it depends how you want to manage it. If you want to manage the list here or manage it as an AD group, and then just add the group. Great question. How to make a link in a hardware asset to a hardware asset in an email? That's a great question, Merrick. The truth is I don't know. As you saw, I wasn't able to find the right property there to do that. So we may need to pick a different class. I'm going to have to dig into that and come back to you if that's all right. Because the truth is I don't know, but I know it must be possible somehow. But yes, it's something that we're going to want to do so that as you get that email through, you can click and go straight to it and see what's going on, depending on what it is. You know, if it's just been retired, that might not need to be looked at, but something else may need to be. Peter's asked, isn't it better to use orchestration notifications instead of subscriptions? It's much more flexible. Yes, absolutely. But, you know, we did that in a couple of minutes there, in maybe 10, 15 minutes, even walking you through it. We set it up. I think it'd be a lot longer in Orchestrator configuring that. So yes, but it may take a little bit longer. But yes, the flip side is you get more flexibility. You're right, Peter. So Peter's asked about Orchestrator for notifications. Can we use that? And yes, you can. Obviously, you can do a lot more things. You can grab data from multiple places. You can basically be fully granular about what you want to configure, the conditions, timings, the recipients, all that stuff. But it's a bit more complex to set up. So okay. Let's jump back. So that was the first part, notifications. Lots of different things you could do with that. Any step of the way where you need communication to happen, rather than relying on people to, you know, follow a process where they have to come and tell you or send you an email or fill something in, then that's a helpful way to just kind of automate the communication side of things, get that information flowing, and make sure that the process as a whole isn't getting stuck somewhere because someone's not, you know, sharing what they've been doing. Okay, let's carry on with the next part of our scenario. Again, our IT staff are doing a great job with the retiring process. They have now got a notification built, so they don't have to be worried about informing the asset manager each time, but they still have to go into the solution and find the asset and retire it and set it all up and set, you know, and configure the asset accordingly. We talked about we're at this stage here. Remember this diagram in the process? We're now at retirement, and we talked about each of these stages. You need to think about what needs filling in on the actual asset record. You know, for deployment, we said we want to fill in the location, the user, set the the date, the assigned date. You know, there's going to be a similar set of things to do for retired. Maybe clearing out the user, clearing out the location, put them back to blank, or set the location to the stockroom, you know, the stockroom location. Or maybe you've got multiple stores, so you set it to the correct stockroom. It might be other things you want to set on that asset record as part of this process. Each of these steps is going to have a list of things that need configuring as part of the process, and your team will have to remember what those things were if they're going to be coming in every time they retire something, and making sure they are setting all the boxes and clearing the right boxes and setting the right dates and stuff. So we're going to look at how we can automate some of that. It's become a tedious and inconsistent activity for the team to have to go in and each time they retire something, find the asset and set the required, you know, the relevant fields. So we're going to use a Cyrus and advanced request offering and the Cyrus and PowerShell activity to actually automate that process. So the idea is that an analyst will submit a retirement request, filling in all the information that's been deemed important by the asset manager. A PowerShell script will run to change the necessary fields. And the great thing about this is that our notification from the first demo will still send, because that subscription, as you recall, was set to fire whenever it was changed from not equals retired to equals retired. It doesn't matter how that gets set, whether it's set by in the console, in the portal, by PowerShell, by any other method. It doesn't matter how that happens, that subscription will still be triggered and that email will still come out. So the great thing about this, we've already built that first step. So we're just sort of building on that. We're now automating the actual triggering of that a little bit more. All right, let's get straight back in there. So we're going to start by building our request offering. So into the library and service catalog and request offerings. I'm going to create an advanced request offering. If you don't know the difference between a request offering and an advanced request offering, then I haven't got time to go into that today, but please reach out. This is something that Cyrus offer to give you a lot more flexibility and control around how you handle your request offerings. Okay, I'm gonna have to whiz through a lot of this as well. So if you're not familiar with any of this process, this may be a little bit too quick for you, but unfortunately I haven't got time today to go through this whole thing. So let's get going. A title for my offering. I think I have an icon ready to go. No, we'll leave the icon blank. And we need to create a template that, a work item template that this offering will generate. So let's create ourselves a template. So my prefix was RO, request offering. That's it. Can't spell retirement today. I want to create a service request. And we want to create a new management pack. I personally recommend a new management pack for each offering. Now you may have something else in place, stick with what you've got management pack wise, but personally I like to do a new management pack per service request, per request offering. Okay, so here's my service request template that I want the offering to create. Oh, goodness me, I really can't spell today. Harbor asset retirement again. I can fill in anything that I want templated. So this is going to be a medium urgency and priority. And I've come from the portal. It's going to be in hardware area assigned to the IT desktop team. Again, set that up as per your organization's service request fulfillment processes. You need to work with the request manager on that, I expect. Here's what we want to get into is activity that's actually going to do the job for us. It's going to be a PowerShell script that's going to do the job for us. Now, we're going to add the PowerShell script later. For now, I'm just going to add a manual activity because we're going to build this up in stages, show you the process you'd go through to actually build this out for yourself for a different scenario. So I'm going to create a manual activity, first of all, as a little placeholder. I'm going to call that placeholder. And that's all come through and replace ultimately with the PowerShell activity. We want something here because we have no activity at all. The service request is processed slightly differently. So we want to put something here as a kind of dummy of our PowerShell activity. Okay, let's OK that. And that's going to create our service request template for us. I should now be able to select that one from the list. Okay, let's keep going through. Now we're going to add our prompts. Now we said in our scenario that we want a hardware asset manager to define what information is needed in order to retire a hardware asset. Now, the first thing I'm going to need to ask him is actually, what asset and he's retiring, or assets. We're going to allow him to do more than one at a time to help bring that efficiency. And to help them find that one, we're going to actually get them to pick a user first, then display the user's assets. So pick a user. So we're going to ask them to select a user, then show them a list of assets for that user. So that is going to be a query results. And then select the asset to retire. Let's leave as assets. You get the idea that you're going to allow more than one if relevant. And that's also going to be query results. We're going to configure these in a minute. The third thing I'm going to ask, just for this simple scenario, is just for a reason. So I can, that's captured. I can look back at that service request and see the reason why that was done. And I've got a little bit of kind of an audit trail of what's happened. Now, as you know, if you know request offerings, we can add as many prompts as we need here, lots of different questions about what's going on. What's happening? If I got multiple stock locations, I can maybe ask them to pick a location where it's going to be set to, so I know where you're going to put this equipment, so I know where it is, and we can change the hardware assets to that location. Lots of things you can do here. Let's keep it simple just for today. Next, I need to configure my prompts. So first one is pick a user. So I'm going to be asking my analyst to pick an Active Directory user. No criteria. I want to show the list of all the users in my system, except I'm going to filter out ones that contain SCSM. So all my kind of system accounts for Service Manager get filtered out. Keeps the list a little bit cleaner. I want to display the display name and maybe the username. Help them pick the correct option there. And relate it on. Okay, so first of all, they pick a user, then select the asset. So I'm going to go ahead and now configure the next prompt for select your assets. Now, if you need to use a combination class here, to allow us to filter by user. Again, haven't got time to go into that, unfortunately, today, but please do ask if there is any urgent questions around that. And now I can specify my criteria to say that the hardware asset has primary user, username, contains the pick a user username. Okay, so I'm now filtering it based on the previous question. They pick a username, pick a user first, and then it's only going to show me assets where the hardware asset has primary user, username is equal to the username of the user I've selected above, i.e. just going to show me their assets. Pick some columns to display again to help us pick the right hardware asset. I want asset name and probably model and serial number. Again, you can see how that works. We can pick the columns we want to show up. Okay, and lastly, this time I want to allow multiple selections. So I can pick multiple hardware assets. That's what's really going to drive the efficiency. If I'm retiring 20 assets at once, this will take just as long as if I'm doing one, whereas doing them one by one on the form would take 20 times as long. So that's what's going to really help with that. And again, relate them as related items to the service request. All right. Again, I'm going nice and quick here. Just so we can get into the automation stuff, which is what we're here to see. Map them all up. Just going to map them all to description. And go through and get this published. All right, whilst that's saving, there's been a question from Sean. We having issues with picking users because we have so many. We end up with a free text field to help filter the list, followed by a crew results question where they can select using the table filtered again. Yes, Sean, that's a really valid point. Great question. I wonder if you wonder what version of our Service Manager portal you're running, because we've made some big improvements in that area in recent versions. So it's now doing all the filtering on the server rather than on the client. So if in the latest version, if you do a user picker, just like I've set up here, it'll only show you the first 500, but the filter box will filter on the server and get you ones that match that criteria of the whole lot. So I think that will help, but again, come back. I think we will take that offline if there's any more questions on that, but it's a good question. That was an issue that some organizations faced, and we addressed that in the not the very latest version, I think around version 8.2, 8.3, something like that would be from memory, where that was addressed. So have a look what version you're on and see if you want to chat more about that offline. Okay, that's our offering done. We need to add that to a, where was it? Add that to a service offering so we can see it on the portal. And this is where my setup's a little bit crazy. So I'm going to do it from the other way around. I'm going to do it from the service offering. Make sure I add it to my IT. I need something. Okay, added that. Obviously, in the live environment, you need to make sure that only IT staff see this one. It's not something designed for end users to see. So you'd also want to see you do all your permissioning through groups and roles. Again, for my demo, I'm going to just keep it simple. and get it out there. Okay, we also need to restart our cache builder to get that on. Restarting the cache builder because the request offerings are all cached by the portal. So we need to restart that service to put it through into the cache. Otherwise, we have to wait a while for it to come through. And if we renew our session, we'll see what we've got. So where's the IT? I need something. Here we are. Here's all our IT requests, and here's our retire hardware asset sticking out without an icon. Let's see if it works for us. So here we go. So pick a user. So just to come back to your question, Sean, I've only got 28, but even if I had 10,000 users, it would show me 1 to 8 of 500 by default. But if I then searched here, it's now not just searching the 500 I've got, but searching back onto the server for the whole list of users. So that should work for larger organizations. And now it's filtered it to just Lillian's asset. She's got these 2 laptops. Just to show you here, if we look at all of our laptops, I've got a hardware view here filtered by laptops. And we can see that these 2 are assigned to Lillian. Thinking about it, I should have probably also put in a criteria into my request offering that also filter this by deployed assets. I should only be able to retire something that's currently deployed, or maybe a few other of my states, depending on my full life cycle. But I shouldn't be able to retire something that's already retired, or or is been ordered, because that doesn't make sense from my process point of view. So you can build that into your criteria here, that it only shows ones that are of the right status that can be retired. All right, let's go ahead and pick them. There we go, selected both of those. And I've got to fill in a route as well. And it's required field. My asset manager is enforcing that I put something in here. I can't save without it because it's required field, just to make sure that there is that kind of audit trail of what's gone on. So I can say she no longer needs them. And now I can save. Okay, here's my service request. Let's go and have a look at it. So it's popped in my information here as per my multiple mapping. And also should have related the 3 things, the user itself and the 2 hardware assets under related items. And that's what our PowerShell script needs to happen. So speaking of which, we can now start to build out our PowerShell script. So it's always worth doing this one service request with our dummy activity to kind of get us a service request that's in the right state that it will be when the PowerShell is ready to run. And then we can start to build out our PowerShell script. Now, obviously, not got time to get into this today. I wish I did, but ultimately, it gets past the GUID of the activity. It gets the parent object, the SR. It gets all the hardware assets that are related to it. It then loops through those, setting them to retired. And then it adds an action log to the SR to indicate that that's been done. Now, in my scenario, I'm only setting one thing, the attestation required, but that's where you could do all the other stuff that's part of your process, clearing out location, clearing out user, setting the location to stockroom, setting maybe the date, anything like that. You could do all that in that set. So it's following your exact process that it should be following each time. Okay, and I can test this. I'll build this up. I'll test it as I go, and I'm ready to test it against my my dummy service request. So if I run my PowerShell, it's asking me for my activity GUID. I'm going to go There it is, there's my placeholder MA. It doesn't matter that it's the wrong type of activity because the script can take any activity grid. So I can now look this up, page form view model dot activity 0, the first activity dot base ID. Gives me the ID of the activity. That's what will also get passed into the PowerShell. So that's what I need to simulate. Copy that, paste it here, and go. It ran nice and quick. Let's see if it did anything. Let's refresh the service request and let's pop open 1 and 10. All this load. So the service request should have an action log. There it is, updated by automation. Object has been retired by automation. So it did the action log. And here's laptop 1 retired and 10 retired. So it did the job. Excellent. Let's go and put this back. Oh, and look, our email fired, as we said it would, telling that those two have been retired because it's been set to retired. I'm glad that popped up. I would have forgotten to go back to that. Right, we need to pick up the pace just to finish it off. I'm going to set these back to deployed so we can run the demo again for real when I've finished the PowerShell activity. So that's now deployed. Okay, so let's complete this by going back to our template. And we're now going to replace that manual activity with a PowerShell activity. Before we do that, we need to create our PowerShell script. So I'm going to create one of those. And paste in my script. And okay that. Okay, that's my PowerShell script created. It's a separate object for the actual PowerShell script that we then refer to in our activity. We'll see that as I edit the template. Drop out the placeholder and add in a PowerShell. So I'm going to add in a default PowerShell activity template that I've already created. Here it is. And again, I can set all the properties on it. I'm going to just get to the meat of it, which is set the script. So I'm going to pick my script. There it is, the retire hardware asset. There's the script I pasted in. And at the bottom, we've got the parameters. It finds the param block in the script, which is here. So it's asking me, I've got the parameter AC GUID. What do I want to actually fire into that? And I want to fire in the activity base ID, which is exactly what we did when we simulated it in PowerShell ISE. Okay, so all that will happen for us. Now, if you remember in the PowerShell, the first thing we did pretty much was get the activity and then get the parent, get the SR itself. That's what we needed to then get the hardware assets. So we could have used this option and just given it the base ID, the parent base ID straight in and got straight to the SR. But by doing it this way, we are covering off the scenario that our PowerShell activity could be nested inside other activities. If your PowerShell activity is inside a parallel or sequential activity, then parent base ID will give you the ID of that container activity, not the root parent. So we pass in the activity, and in the PowerShell we iterate up to get to the very top level to the actual SR. So it's just covering that scenario, makes it a little more robust. So that's how I recommend to do that. Okay, that should be it. Should be all we need. Save that template, and now we should be good to run that scenario again. So let's just check those are both back to deployed. Let's just refresh and check those are both back to deployed. Meanwhile, I'm going back to home page here to redo that offering. Okay, so yeah, 1 and 10 are both set back to deployed. And we'll go again. Pick both the assets again. And save. Okay, and there's our new SR this time. And now we have to hope the demo gods are with us today and this fires off. So the process will happen is the SR itself will go into in progress. That will kick our PowerShell activity into in progress. That will then run the PowerShell itself and set our assets to retired. So just going to be patient with it and give that a few moments. And whilst I do that, I've got another question here. Sean's asking that, is there any community examples to get started with PowerShell? Mostly using runbooks at the moment, can see the benefit of PowerShell activities. I mean, I'm going to be giving away this example at the end of the webinar. I'll show you where you can get that. There are the examples on our Cyrus and community site of things you can do, call it examples. But I think it's one of those things that can seem very daunting, but you just got to, take the time, and very quickly you'll get to understand what's going on with these with PowerShell and what you can do with it. Obviously powerful, hence the power. I think really where PowerShell activity comes in to be helpful is to update service manager objects themselves. So that's where it really comes into its own. So here I'm updating a hardware asset, and also I'm updating the service request itself with the action log. Just seen that pop up there at the bottom there, so that's pleasing for me. So when I'm actually using it to manipulate service manager objects, it's really, really good. There's no extra complication around security and permissions and routing, because it's all run on the workflow server. So that's nice and straightforward as well. If you want to get beyond that and start manipulating other things, Active Directory, Configuration Manager, other systems, calling SQL data, all that kind of stuff, then PowerShell activity will still do that. But at that point, you probably want to go back to Orchestrator. If you've invested in the infrastructure and you've got that, then I would sort of at that point switch back to that, and make the use of that full flexibility and all the kind of extra things you get with that around secure passwords and those kind of things. But just to manipulate service manager objects, very powerful, very quick. That happened a lot quicker than it would happen as a runbook. So we need something to happen a little bit quicker as well, then it's worth looking into PowerShell activity. So yeah, I'll give you this example. There are others out there in our community, and just give it a go, Sean. Okay, I've seen 2 more emails come through. They've been retired again. Very pleasing. And let's refresh again both ISR. And we'll just pull up one of these just to check, because we are almost at the end of our time. So it's back to retired, and this is our new SR 55 at the end. Also has our action log. Oh, it failed. So it didn't quite work. It did its job and then failed to write failed to write the log, and that then wrote this log instead. Interesting. But it did update the asset. Okay, unfortunately, we've not got time to get into that, but hopefully something minor there. What's going on? I'm just going to flip back to our slides and wrap up. Okay, yes, Marek just asked, this will be available as a video. I'm just going to come to that in a few more slides, so bear with me. But yes, I appreciate it was very fast. I had to go through things very quickly and skip over a lot of background to kind of get to my points today. Okay, next steps. We're on the hour, so I'm going to have to wrap up. First of all, if you've done all that, take that vacation. A lot of work to get to kind of where we're at in terms of our scenarios here. All that process work we talked about in webinar 2. Some of that training and communication, and maybe some basic customizations we've done in our portal from webinar 3. And now we've done some notifications and we've done some automations of our key processes. If you've done all that, take a vacation because you've earned it, because you've done a lot of hard work, and it's going to really start to make your asset management process a lot easier, and it's really going to start to improve the value of your data. So you've earned it. But unfortunately, next point, starting over again, because it's a continual improvement process. Nothing's ever complete. You've got to constantly reevaluate your process. Does the process make sense? Is it the right process? And how can I improve it? And how can I ensure people are following it more and more? So it's a continual thing. Keep tweaking it, keep improving it. And one thing that can start to really be valuable and helpful and bring efficiency is, where possible, take IT out of the loop. So just back on our 2 examples today, the first one with the notification, when something was retired, we emailed the asset manager so that they can then arrange for the IT disposal. Well, why can't we just email the IT disposal company directly? And they just know to come and collect it. Once they've got, 20 emails, they know they've got enough equipment to come and collect, they're going to come and get it. So take IT out of the process, it improves efficiency, you're doing less, your staff's doing less, it makes everyone's lives better. The second example, where the analyst fills in the retirement request, bit more careful with this one, not the best fit of an example, but some of these things could be end user driven. So an end user fills in a request when they want their equipment to be returned to IT. They're leaving, they've got a replacement, their job role's changed, they need to off hire some equipment. Why can't they fill in that form that triggers that process? And that goes straight through to do some of that automation. So where possible, take IT out of the equation. You're going to speed things up and just make things run a lot slicker. Okay, so that's the next steps, but I really want to come back to that first point. Take a vacation, because if you have, once you've got to this point, you're going to be in a really, really good place. So that's just to wrap up. Thanks for joining. Particularly thank you to anyone who's been on all 4. That's great commitment. This link here is where you'll find all the information, all the links to the recordings, all the code downloads, from last week, the custom task, and from this week, the PowerShell. It's not up there right now, but it will be real soon. And don't bother to type that link in, just search in the community for mastering, and it's the first thing that comes up. If you're not a member of our community, then go ahead and have a look at that and join and sign up for our Sarazin community. All right, I think that's kind of it from me. Just to wrap up, I said this at the end of every session, but if you're not an asset management customer, then it's really easy to get started. We offer a 30-day free trial. We can help with the implementation and training, and there's lots more help on our community site. So just reach out, team@sarazin.com, to email. Community.sarazin.com is the community forum site to join in. Okay, I'm aware I'm talking super fast, so I'm going to slow it down and just pause for anyone to ask any final questions. If you think of questions later, or you review the video because I've gone so fast today, and then questions come up, then please do feel free to reach out to me directly, jeff.ross@sarazin.com, or you can always email team@sarazin.com, and they'll get you in touch with me and we'll get answers to questions. So if you don't ask them now, then don't worry, this is not your only opportunity, but I'll just hang on the line a few more moments to take any more questions that come through. But it has gone past the hour. So I'll just wrap up by saying thank you very much, everyone, for attending and participating for the whole series. It's been great, and look forward to speaking to you and hearing from you all again soon. All right, thank you.